So we're going to welcome Dr. V back. Dr. V, God,
Hi, how are you?
you would have thought that you went away and COVID went away, but you're back and COVID's back. So
Exactly.
I welcome you, but I certainly don't welcome COVID. How have you
Absolutely.
been doing
I've
first?
been doing great. I've been doing
Good,
very good.
good. So, I mean, I know you probably scratching your head and saying, or you probably knew, from a medical standpoint, that we were not out of the woods.
No.
And so now we're looking at there's something called a Delta variant. We're also
Yeah.
looking at uh, this term called breakthrough cases, where people that are
Yeah.
vaccinated are still coming down with COVID. So let's start with the breakthroughs first.
Well, actually, if we could start with the variants,
Okay,
because that's kind of how you get the breakthroughs.
I got you. Okay,
Yeah, and so there are 164 documented variants of COVID-19. So
164.
164.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we hear about the Delta variant, we need to make sure we understand that's only one of 164. So what happens is we talk about it in the public for the ones that are clinically significant. So there are three that are clinically significant. The Delta is the one that's spreading now. Right behind it is the Delta Plus, and right behind that is Lambda. So we have three variants out of the 164 that are clinically, what we call clinically significant. And so a breakthrough case is basically when you're vaccinated and you still catch COVID, and you may have no symptoms or you may have very minor symptoms, and you can spread it, but you cannot spread it to the same extent that someone else could spread it. So, for instance, if I'm unvaccinated, I could have uh, hundreds of thousands of viruses in my nose and spread it for 14 to 21 days. If I'm vaccinated, might only have 100, and I'm only spread for 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So the predominant amount of the spread is still coming from the unvaccinated. But the breakthrough cases are when someone's vaccinated, they become positive. And then usually they have very mild symptoms or they may have no symptoms at all. The places where we're seeing breakthrough cases that are significant are people who are significantly immunocompromised. So, for instance, pregnancy is a significant immunocompromised state. They're now recommending the COVID vaccine for those that are pregnant. Also, transplant patients. People have lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, things like that. They've been on prednisone or steroids for a long period of time.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. And then you started off. You talked about the three variants that we talk about. And so
Yes,
with all of those 100 and what was the number again?
164.
164. Why are we only talking about three right now?
Because those three have been found to be clinically significant and actually break through. The
Okay.
other 161 seem to be covered by the vaccines that we have.
I got you. Okay. So it
Yeah.
sounds like this is in beginning to really understand the age of this virus, that it's not
Yes.
new, that it's
Right.
been around a long time, that many of
Mhm.
us probably already carried some kind of COVID. Would that be the case or not?
We didn't necessarily carry it. What happened was this virus actually mutated to the point where it could actually jump from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a coronavirus. Coronavirus have been around for centuries. They just haven't necessarily been able to jump from human to human. So the first time we sort of saw that happen was with SARS and with MERS, which are also coronaviruses.
Mm-hmm.
But this COVID-19 is actually more infectious than those were.
Interesting. And so the other question I have, because we've gone through, everyone needs to get tested, everyone needs to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Now, for those who are vaccinated, are we going to be required to get tested again? I mean, is that something that should be a part of our protocol? I mean, does it matter?
Yeah, not really unless you're really sick.
I
So,
said,
if you're really sick, then someone may actually test you, but outside of that, getting tested is not necessarily important.
hmm okay. And what about the prevention? Is there any way to prevent? I mean, I know
Yeah.
vaccine, masks, all that. I mean, are we back to that, or is there anything new that we should
Well,
know?
the one thing is that mutations happen the more and the longer this goes on. So it's really important that as many people get vaccinated so you can really sort of clamp this thing down. One of the other things that I think is important is if people are not vaccinated and they begin to get symptoms, they need to know where they can get monoclonal antibodies. Because if you are unvaccinated, this Delta variant is a stronger variant. It is more efficient. It's making patients sicker. And you have to get the monoclonal antibodies within about 7 to 9 days. So if you're not vaccinated, I tell people know where you can get monoclonal antibodies if you get COVID-19. What I think is eventually going to happen is everyone's going to get exposed to COVID-19, right? It's just a matter of if you're vaccinated or not. If you're vaccinated, you'll keep on going. If you're unvaccinated, you could wind up in the hospital or in the ICU.
Yeah, that's where I think I was trying to go with that question.
Yeah.
But also, we talk about children now, right?
Yeah.
They're getting ready to go back to school. Some parents are very hesitant. They're concerned. Makes sense. They're worried because particularly children under 12. What's your take on this?
Yeah. So if there was not a mask mandate in a school, I would not send my kids there if my kids were unvaccinated. So if I had kids that were 12 years old or less and there wasn't a very strict mask mandate, then I would actually keep them out of school. I think one thing that's important for a lot of parents is that, they talk about kids not necessarily getting as sick, but kids are getting sick with the Delta variant.
Yeah.
That's number one. And then number two, you have to remember that there are risk factors for kids. When kids have asthma, when kids are a little husky or a little overweight, those kids do not do as well. So I don't want people to think that children are impenetrable because we are seeing, ICU, pediatric ICUs fill up. So if there's no mask mandate, I would not send my children there.
So, we still have, and thank you for that. And we still have vaccine resistors, people that just, I forget what the term is, but, folks that just don't want to take it, don't believe in it.
Right.
And I read an article recently where I think because the vaccine was still experimental, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but still experimental as all of us went to get these vaccines. But have we gotten past, when is the organization that, sort of verifies medications,
Yeah.
when will they actually get the vaccines get that stamp of approval?
Right.
Has it gotten it already, or how much longer do we have to go
So
before?
we're not really in an experimental protocol because the experimental protocol are the people who actually took it before it became widely available.
Right.
What we're in is what they call EUA, which is basically emergency use authorization.
Right.
Which is before it's actually gone through the full approval with the FDA. I expect that we will have full approval by the FDA before Labor Day. Because now there's tons of data on this and it's been given to hundreds of millions of people worldwide. And people have been doing well.
Right.
So I expect that we'll have full approval probably sometime before or around Labor Day. And once we do after that, you're going to see a lot of private employers and a lot of private businesses impose mandates. And you won't be able to do that much if you are not fully vaccinated. I think the other thing about the vaccines that I just want to say quickly is people think that they were developed quickly and they were not. The messenger RNA technology is from the 70s. It was started to be developed during the 70s. And then it was further developed specifically for coronaviruses under the Obama administration. And President Obama actually had developed a vaccine for SARS. SARS and COVID-19 have 95% of the same DNA. So I want people to realize we had a fully functional vaccine for SARS. SARS just didn't hit our shores, right? So what they did was they actually changed the technology just a little bit so that they could actually work with this particular coronavirus rather than SARS. So this was just an adjustment on a technology that already existed and had started its first beginnings back in the mid-70s.
Interesting. So, we definitely appreciate all the time you've given to this and talk to us about this. There are always more and more questions that people have. I think every week we're going to come up with more questions. And I'd like folks to know that we, on the Washington Informer website, we also have a fact check column because there are a lot of, what do you call them, untruths, rumors, all kinds of stuff going on out there. And so we are trying to, bring the truth to some of the concerns that people have. And
Right.
is there anything, Dr. Reed, that you know of that people keep saying about this virus, or again, the vaccines that, you just, if you can make it clear that this is the reality and not, rumor.
As
Um,
far as the virus, as far as the
yeah,
vaccine,
yeah, vaccine or the virus itself.
oh, I mean, all you have to do is, look at the pictures on TV where Texas is setting up tents. I mean, this is real. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. I mean, we're seeing this every day in the emergency department, and so this is absolutely real. And and I tell people, don't be shocked when it happens. I can't tell you how many people when I tell them they have COVID, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" Right? And I'm kind of like, it's impacted a lot of people, and this
Yes.
is really. I have young people that are learning how to walk again, learning how to talk again because they were in the ICU for 30 days.
Wow.
So all of the risk factors, I haven't been fully defined, and I just tell people it's just not something worth taking a chance.
Okay. Well, I got one more question
Yeah.
before we go, and
Okay.
that is the rumor about infertility, that
Yes.
there's a belief that the vaccine will cause infertility. Can you address that?
Yes. So the vaccine has not been shown to impact infertility at all. In fact, they are actually recommending that it be given to pregnant women because pregnant women are an immunocompromised state. And if a pregnant woman gets it, her child also gets the antibodies and has some protection because right now a child could not be of that age, a newborn could not be vaccinated. So now I can tell you that people who come out of the ICU, a lot of them have problems with erectile dysfunction and with their fertility coming out of the ICU with COVID. When
Mhm.
you actually come out of the ICU with COVID, you are almost, you're literally walking and talking, learning how to walk and talk all over again. So
Amazing.
I tell people, I remind people that COVID and getting sick with COVID will impact your fertility, but the vaccine will not.
Wow. That's a good note to end on. So, Dr. B,
Yes,
thank you so very much for joining us. Hopefully, we'll have you back real soon because we got
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. Thanks. Bye bye.
Have a great one. Thank you.